No, wrong one. Okay, that's the right one. Okay, let me go back to this. And, uh, okay. Let me do something here because obviously this is not showing internet at all. There we go. Starting to get worried. Forum, how you doing? How you be? Top to the AB, and I don't think this is going to be like this is like gonna be the last time I work with cam links, the little USB dongles, because those guys have been driving me absolutely up a wall. And it's crazy to have a channel where I'm trying to help people with technical support and technical issues to get better at troubleshooting and just being a better engineer or just better at computer science in general, and you can't even fix a cam link issue for like 45 minutes. That has been the story of my life right about now. And my audio, it looks good. It looks like I was just worried that it may peak a little bit, so let me turn it down just a tad. But yeah, oh my goodness, the kind of issues I have been having lately have been crazy. So yeah, there we go. Okay, so I hope everybody's having a good day or a good night. Hope everybody had a good day at work. Me personally, I was just doing jury duty for the past I don't know how long and just sitting down doing nothing. So that has been great. I wonder like if if once you get to a certain age, you don't have to do jury duty anymore. Like once you retire, do you also retire from jury duty? Like if I was to retire like 40, 45 or something like that, could I just not do jury duty anymore, or do I still have to do it? Like, I don't know if the requirement is that you have to work, because on the little card, it'd be like, oh, hey, do you work or whatever. So just curious questions that I may have for myself that I may have to look up later on. But yeah. Oh, right. Does it still show me peeking? I shouldn't be peeking. Like, I don't care how loud I talk. As long as I don't, like, yell, I shouldn't be peeking. Okay, cool. I thought I saw something indicating that I was peeking, and I started to get worried a little bit there, but no, it doesn't seem to be the case. Last episode, I actually was streaming to like a game that has never been played before. Like apparently there's some game called Science or Computer Science, and I was like, I've never even heard of this game before in my entire life, but apparently I was streaming to the wrong segment. So this time I think I got the right one. I'm not even sure, how that's going, but it is what it is. But yeah, the chat is there and everything, and also the questions are there as well. So yeah, let's get into it. Now, I do want to talk about a few different things of kind of like where I want to be with this. I want us to get to a point where we can talk about technical issues and get better at technical issues for people who are, coming out of college, or people who, who don't have that type of experience. Because there is a bit of a dichotomy between once you go to college, you're expected to get a degree, and let's say you get a degree in like computer information systems or computer science, and now you get out into the real world, and it's very, very hard to get a job at that point in time because you have absolutely no experience. And then we do the flip of it, and you're like 18 and you try to get into a computer job. One, they may not hire you just because you don't have experience or a degree, but two, even if they did and you worked your way up and now you have experience, then you can't actually move up to anything versus like management or IT or higher levels because you don't have a degree. So it's like the chicken before the egg. And what do you do in these kind of situations? And I want to create a type of medium that will allow people to, come here and learn technical questions, or have technical questions and learn from here, or technical issues, or if they have, review interview questions, or if they have resume questions that I may not know, but I can still point you in the right direction, or I at least may be able to help. I wanted to put myself into a situation where I'll be able to help others with my technical knowledge, as opposed to just sleeping and just forgetting it all. So it makes me a lot sharper in the future, and it makes everybody else sharper as well. So I think that that's kind of where I'm trying to go with this, and so far I think my camera has been okay. I was kind of worried that my camera was just going to die on me just because of the way the cam links have been working, but so far so good. So we'll just leave it at that. So let's actually go into the first question here, which is just an easy one here. So let's actually just switch it so everybody can see. What's the fastest and easiest way to send 100 gigabytes 7-zip file to someone? Well, a USB stick in the post office. Well, the reason why I brought up such an easy one, and it may not be easy for some, is there's a few things with this. So 100 gigabyte file, 7-zip. Okay, so that's kind of interesting that it's 7-zip, but we'll just talk about it just in general. But 100 gigabyte file, the easiest way to get that to somebody, if it's 100 gig, I would say, like, if you have, if it's something that you want to give, like, let's say residential, like, in other words, you're just talking about regular people, then put it in like OneDrive or iCloud or something like that, and then give them the link. That's probably the quickest way, because then you could just send them a link and then they can just download it, and that's the end of it. So I would recommend doing that first, because an upload speed is it's quicker than a post office and a USB stick. But the reason why I want to bring this up, but let's change it on them. Let's change up the file format. What if this was a DICOM packet? And for you guys that aren't aware, a DICOM packet is a encapsulated packet that actually has images that come from like CT scans or X-rays or something like that. What if it was a DICOM packet? Then what would you do? Okay, well, if that's the case, then protocol dictates that you can't actually just like take that and then like give it to somebody, because you don't want to put DICOM packets on a USB stick. Now, there have been times that I've run into situations where you may have to, in order to get the images to a radiologist so he can dictate, and then, but at the same time, that's not proper procedure. Ideally, you want to send them within the computer that is specified for that particular technology. The reason is, if you have it on a thumbstick, then there's a possibility that that thumbstick can actually keep that information, and then somebody else can get it and stuff like that. So you don't want to put DICOM packets on a thumbstick. But the only time that I've run into a situation where I've needed to do that is if a radiologist needed it now and his computer was down and he was on his laptop. That's the only time you run into that situation. But you have to be aware, when you're dealing with certain types of packets, the protocol changes, and it changes based on whatever you signed up for. So in this case, HIPAA. So based on HIPAA, which is the organization that controls how packets are sent, and how transactions are made for the medical industry, they have dictations, and they have certain stylings that basically dictate how packets are transferred from one person to another. So depending on what you're bound by, that may change. So let's say if it was a 100 gigabyte zip file, but it was user information or IP information or phone numbers, you cannot put that on a thumb drive, okay? Because you will get fired. So let's not do anything that will get somebody fired here. So let's switch back to myself here. So yeah, I would say you don't want to do anything to get yourself fired when it comes to something like that. At that point in time, you also wouldn't want to do OneDrive either. So OneDrive is also not a good idea to do for that kind of guy, because if you do something with OneDrive, you're now taking that information and you're now putting it in a space that is not regulated by that company. Okay, so let's say you worked for a company XYZ and you had encrypted information, and that encrypted information, you needed to get it to someplace fast. Well, if you take it and put it in another place that is unsecure, because you have no secure on that, it's just your OneDrive account somewhere, someplace out in the ether that they may not have the same level of securities, then people can breach that and then grab that information, or you may forget about it altogether. So I definitely do not recommend doing that, and I am completely out of focus. Okay. And I am completely out of focus. I'm so sorry about that, but I definitely do not recommend doing that if that were the case, to send information via OneDrive if it was encrypted information for your job, or if it contained IP addresses, phone numbers, things of that nature. So you have to be very, very careful with the type of information that's being sent, and you can't just blindly say, oh yeah, no, just put it on a thumb drive, bro, and just send it to somebody. That is a very residential question. Depending on who you're dealing with, and depending on who is on the opposite side, that changes everything. So just something to look out for and something to be aware of. I thought that was a pretty interesting one, because depending on what he said, changes everything. If he had said that, hey, this is for a radiologist, and somebody said take that to the post office, like, he'd be fired the next day. Like, that's a horrible. Be very careful, okay? Because you just don't want to put yourself in a situation where just trying to do something right by somebody can get you in trouble because you're not following the proper procedure. So just be aware that that's just not the way you want to do it, depending on what type of contents are in that particular file. Alrighty, I think that was a good one, but camera decided to go crazy on me. Let me make sure my camera's all right before I continue. Yeah, no, it looks all right. It looks okay. Let me scoot up. I know I'm like right here, and that's what I currently have set. Yeah. So yeah, okay, cool. I'm looking good. I just wanted to make sure I had to do a little camera check. Okay, so that was a good one. All right. So we got a new one here. Let's swap it back. Okay, make sure everybody can see that, and they can. Alrighty. So the next one says, oh, I can just read from here. Crashing PC, black screen with colored outlines. Black screen with colored outlines. Specs, i5 10600K, overclocked. Okay, cool. And then it has a RTX 3070 overclocked. Okay, 16 gigs of RAM, DDR4, 3200 megahertz. XMP profile is on, and MSI Z490 A Pro with 700 watt EVGA PSU. Okay, no, 700 watts should be fine. PC is currently restarting when loading into a new mission in a game or some sort of event like the I'm sorry, I was just looking, I apologize, I was looking up for some reason. That was a horrible idea. I'll just start over. PC is currently restarting when loading into a new mission in a game or some sort of event like the bomb going off in CSGO. It is crashing to a black screen with some parts of the screen outlined in red, green, or blue. What? It is crashing to a black screen when some parts of the screen outline in red, green, or blue. I reinstalled after reseating all components in PC Windows 10 a couple weeks ago, and this solved the problem for about a week. It usually occurs once every CSGO match. Wow. I wonder if the GPU issue or a power draw issue. The way it crashes with the screen outlining the UI before the crash is RGB is confusing. Thanks. Yeah, the fact that it's crashing with the screen going RGB with the UI. Okay, I just want to read this one more time. The way it crashes with the screen outlining the UI before the crash in RGB is confusing. Okay, so it shows him the UI before it crashes, but it always crashes in a game. This is definitely going to be a graphics card issue. The fact that you reseated everything had it going for a little bit, and then it happened with the issue. I mean, yes, you're looking at between a graphics card and a power supply issue. A 700 watt power supply should be enough to power that. I don't really see an issue with a 700 watt. Now, of course, he didn't say if it was bronze, silver, gold, platinum, whatever, but it still shouldn't. It should probably be somewhere around 400 watts, something like that, 450, 500, even with a 3070. Because I mean, that's what most 3070s draw in this kind of a situation. So I don't think that that just the power supply alone may not be enough to power the graphics card, but it is one of the main things someone would check in this situation. So there's a couple ways to go about this. One, driver. So I would check and update the drivers and see if maybe that's an issue, or see that whenever you started having issues, did you update the driver? Generally, when it comes to NVIDIA drivers, you may have to upload or upgrade or downgrade depending on the situation. So if you look back and you see that the last time you updated the driver was the first time you had problems, you may need to go down to a different version and see if that fixes the issue. Ideally, with a 3070 though, it's probably not a version issue because the 3070 is relatively new. You run into those problems in earlier cars like 1080s and stuff like that. But if it's not a driver issue, and then we're looking at either power or graphics card. Without swapping anything, the first thing I would recommend is taking your graphics card and plug it into another PCIe slot. That would be one of the quickest ways that I would troubleshoot, because that would eliminate the motherboard right there. For the most part, of course, if the other slot doesn't work, then of course it doesn't eliminate the motherboard, but it's something to change. So let's say we plug it into the different slot and everything starts working. Okay, well, you have an issue with your motherboard and the first PCIe slot may be having problems. So it doesn't matter what card you put in it, it's going to have that same problem. So barring you have the exact same issue with plugging into the other PCIe slot, then I will look at the graphics card or power supply. Now, with the graphics card or power supply, what you could do, this is a 10600K. This thing has integrated graphics. Just take out the graphics card. just you know, take it out, and then plug in an HDMI cable, and then start playing CS:GO on, you know, low settings, and see when the bomb goes off, do you still have the problem? If when the bomb goes off and you still have the, okay, to be fair, this should work no matter what. I just thought about that. Like, it should work no matter what you do, because in this situation, there's no graphics card and there's not enough wattage to actually trigger the power supply. Now, here's the thing about power supplies though. If it was a power supply and you hit the minimum, it would just shut you down. It wouldn't freeze, it'll just go away. So the fact that it's showing you the screen makes me think more graphics than power supply. But of course, you know, you can test with just no graphics card and see if that fixes the issue, or you can test in another slot. It sounds more like a graphics card issue or a power supply issue, and I was trying to give you options to choose from without having to go and replace or buy a graphics card or a power supply to try it out. But at this stage, I would say, yeah, I would go PCIe slot. I'm sorry. I would go driver, then PCIe slot. Then after PCIe slot, then I would try to look at maybe trying a new graphics card or a new power supply. It's kind of interesting that it only happens when like things like bombs goes off or stuff like that, in only rare situations, but it happens every match, like it knows. Like it has a mind of its own and is thinking. So yeah, with this kind of a situation here, okay, cool. There we go. I'm just making sure the camera looks good. So with this kind of a situation here, yeah, I would just recommend to just try to look at the drivers, make sure there's no correlation with the drivers. Also, here's a new one: check event viewer. So go to event viewer and then hardware, and whenever you crash, see exactly what you crashed for. That'll be a good one, because the crash will actually show you whether or not you crashed for power or graphics card. There you go. That's what I would do. I would go that way. I would look at event viewer to see exactly why you crashed, and then go from there, because both the graphics card and the power supply are hardware issues, and it would tell you whether or not it crashed because of that. It'll say like NV blah 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 blah, or it'll say like power or something like that. So I would try event viewer first and then go from there. Hopefully that helps. And that was from Carrot Eater 212. All right, these easy names, starting off to a good start here. Now this is an interesting one, so let me pull this guy up for everybody so they can see. Now this one's crazy, because this right here is not necessarily a question that somebody's having a problem with. This is just a bunch of questions that you would ask for an interview, and I just kind of wanted to go over it. It's a little bit dated. It's extremely dated, because as you can look here, it says for like 10 years ago. But I mean, I do want to talk about it because there are some things in here that are still happening. So I just want to, you know, go over it, because some people may not know this, or a lot of people may not know this. Only people in the technical field may know this. And even then, some of them may just be like, man, I just Googled this dumb stuff. So, look, I just wanted to read it here because I think it's a good one. Not a manager, but in a higher position at the company. These are questions we ask for new tech support reps, basically. Which Windows version are you familiar with? Experience in Mac or Linux? That's a good question. What would you get to the, how would you get to the network connection screen in Windows 98, 2K, XP, Vista 7? We'll change that to 7, 10, 11. Do you have experience setting up email clients? Which clients? Are you familiar with what MAC addresses is, or how to find on a cable modem? How would you find it in Windows? Okay, this is just way too many questions. We'll just start from one and then we'll answer and we'll continue on. All right, so let's go with the first question. Which Windows versions are you familiar with? Do you have experience in Mac or Linux? This is a very dangerous question in an interview setting, because here's the thing about tech support that or just technical, just department that I've learned over these past, what was it, 10, 20 years, that you are never the smartest person in the room. You may be at one particular point in time, or once you get into like a higher level, then you may actually be the smartest person in the room. But outside of that, 9 times out of 10, if it's a technical interview, you're not the smartest person in the room. Just let your ego go in these kind of situations, because you'll go a lot further in life, and you'll go a lot further in the technical field if you let your ego go. If you don't let your ego go, you're going to be in a world of hurt, because all they're going to do is embarrass you. So if you don't know Mac or Linux, which Mac is based off of a version of Linux. So if you don't know it, then say you don't know it. Don't let them then take that information and start asking you questions about Mac or Linux, because it's going to prove that you don't know what you're talking about. They're going to be like, oh, hey, how do I, write a file or something like that? And if you're not like springing out VI or go to a change directory and go to a particular location, open a file VI, an odd insert, yada, 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 WQ. If you're not talking about Linux, then they're just going to completely think that either A, you're a liar, or B, you don't know what you're talking about. So if you don't know, just say you don't know. That is the very first thing. I used to try to convince people I knew stuff, because I was trying to get these jobs that I thought I was qualified for when I wasn't, and it'd be like 20, 30 different things, like Red Hat Linux and AAA, which at the time I didn't know anything about, and all of these different subjects, and I would put that on a resume, and because it looked good, it looked like I knew all this kind of stuff, but I actually had no idea. I just came from residential. All I knew about to do is how to fix a modem. Like, I didn't know anything about this networking industry at the time. So when it comes to asking questions, or if you're in an interview setting, if they ask you a question and you don't know the answer, say you don't know the answer. Do not play games with these people, because they may know way more than you do about a particular subject matter, and they will blow you away without any care or disregard in the world. They'll have you in a car crying, like Craig friend, what was it, Day Day, whatever. They'll have you in a car crying. So I'm telling you, don't do it. It's not worth it. Okay, that was the first question. How would you get to the network connection screen in Windows higher levels, let's say 7, 10, 11? So that's pretty straightforward. Basically, you just click on the Windows logo, and now you can actually just type in network connections or control panel and then network connections. So control panel network connections, or just type in network connections, and I may actually pull it up as well. Actually, I'm on Windows 11. I could just try that real quick and find out for you. Yeah, it does. So it'll type up view network connection. So you can just go there, and that's kind of how you would get there. So just control panel network connections on that. That's an easy one. Most people have an idea. Generally, whenever you're in a technical setting, so let's say technical support or cable support, like for a broadband company or something like that, that's a pretty normal place for you to be 9 times out of 10, just to see what the IP address is, or if they have it set up properly, or if it's actually connected and showing enabled. Are you familiar with what a MAC address is, or how to find it on a cable modem? How would you find it in Windows? Okay, so on a cable modem, yes, you can find the MAC address by just looking at the back or bottom of it. It really kind of depends on what kind of modem it is. Like, for example, if it was a Motorola Surfboard, it's on the bottom. If it was like these new DOCSIS, like Eris, whatever, DOCSIS 3 standard, these gigantic devices, it would actually be on the bottom, like on the feet. So yeah, you just get the MAC address from that. And if you wanted to do it in Windows, then you would actually just go to Device Manager, which is located under Control Panel, System Hardware, and then Device Manager. Now, it changes up depending on what version of Windows you're on, but you can just type in Device Manager when you click on the Windows logo. So just click on Windows logo, and then when you do a search, just search for Device Manager. And that's how you would do that. You would actually then go to the device, and then once you go to the device, then you'll be able to pull that up. But here's the thing, how would you find the MAC address? Find it in Windows. Okay. Because I thought about something, because he said, how would you find it in Windows? Well, a modem you would never see in Windows, because a modem has nothing but an Ethernet cable that just gives you a public IP address. That doesn't do anything. You don't actually see that in Windows. So I was like, hold up. No, he's just talking about how do you find any MAC address. And how do you find any MAC address is by going to Device Manager, clicking on the device, and then going through the tabs, and it'll eventually tell you the MAC address. So that's how you would do that. And what is DNS? Explain. So when it comes to DNS, I don't know how far people want to go with it, but DNS, let's just call it what it is. So basically, when you want to go to like google.com, well, google.com isn't really google.com. Google.com is a IP address. And so DNS is the ability to go to a site that will transfer google.com to the IP address that it belongs to, so your computer can go to that location. Okay, so that's what it is. So your computer will reach out to that particular DNS server, and it will say, hey, I'm trying to get to google.com. It's like, okay, yeah, that's this IP address, and then it will go to that location. So that is essentially what DNS is on a very broad scale. And that's and you want to be able, like, whenever you learn technologies, the way I always did it whenever I was just studying just to try to get into the networking industry, and try to break that little fourth wall there, is that I needed to get to a position where I could talk about it comfortably and easily that anyone can understand it. If you got to that position where anyone could understand what you're saying and what you're talking about, then I'm just making sure my camera was okay. If you can get to a position where anyone can understand what you're talking about, then you know it. So that is your standard. So if you can say, oh yeah, I know what DNS is, but you can't really explain what it is so that a child can understand it, then you have no idea what DNS is. You just know how to, like, pass a test. That's not what you need to know in order to impress people on an interview. So just like the basic understanding of what DNS is exactly as I explained. If you want to go further into it, then you can start talking about the packets themselves and the discover, the offer, the reply, the accept. DORA is what we call it. So you can go even further and explain that you really are a network engineer and you really do understand DNS, and you can go about it that way. But it really just kind of depends on your level of knowledge there. What is DHCP? Explain. Okay, I feel like I'm the one that's on this interview. But DHCP, the best way to explain that is if, let's say, let's see the best way to explain that. So let's say your entire network, you have a bunch of computers at your home and stuff like that. They all need what's called an IP address in order to get to the internet. An IP address is a uniquely identifiable IP address that they need in order to get to the internet. Well, here's the thing. They all can't have an IP address because there's not enough IP addresses in the world. So instead, you get what's called a router. A router, whether you get it from your internet service provider or you buy one, a router basically takes the one IP address that your cable company or your internet service provider gives you and convert it into 254 IP addresses. Okay, and those 254 IP addresses will now have access to the internet because they'll basically send their information to the router, who will then convert that with a source of the public IP address and then send that information out, and then that information will come back and it will go to those IP addresses. So, and the router memorizes who those IP addresses belong to. Now, how do you figure out what IP address you get? Well, that's where DHCP comes in. DHCP allows you to request an IP address from a location, and it will send you one. And that IP address is what you would use to get out to the internet. So DHCP is the process of doing a ARP, which is an address resolution protocol, basically ARPing and try to get that information. And then once you get that information from the DHCP server, then you would make sure nobody else has that IP address, and then you would try to use it and get out to the internet. So that's what DHCP is, kind of like in a broad scale of how it works in the residential sense. It goes even more into it when you start talking about the commercial and, you know, DHCP servers and DHCP relays and stuff like that, but that's kind of like the basics of it. So just to kind of give you guys an idea of what DHCP is, what do you know about doxes? So this is obviously a cable interview, and this is obviously from a really long time ago because nobody really asks you about this kind of stuff anymore. I remember whenever I did my interview when I was in the cable industry, they never asked me anything about what a doxes is because at the time nobody knew. You just worked the job and then they told you. But even when they told you, it didn't make a difference because customers don't know what a doxes is. They don't care what a doxes modem is. All they want is their cable to work and their TV to work and their internet to work. Outside of that, they don't care about anything else. But doxes is a standard. I remember I actually did a report on doxes whenever I was a kid, and I was talking about the different standards before I even had a job in the cable industry, and I was talking about the different standards of doxes whenever I was like 18. So but doxes is a standard, and the current one is 3, or at least it should still be 3. I'm not sure anymore, but I'm pretty sure it's still 3. And basically it's a standard that talks about how cable or fiber transfers from one location to another. It's just the standard. What do you know about a coaxial cable? Well, somebody's training you to be a field tech. So a coaxial cable is basically just a cable that transfers it's a coax cable. It's like a circular cable that you plug into like your TV or to a modem that transfers signal from the internet service provider. That's basically the best way to call it. What do you know about Ethernet? We just kind of talked about it, but Ethernet is a standard that just it's like, for example, Ethernet cables. It's just, yeah, it's a cable. I don't even know. I don't know if anybody has ever asked me what Ethernet is. I've had people ask me what internet is, but not even what Ethernet is. That's an old one, man. I don't think anybody's gonna. I can safely say anybody who watches this, no one will ever ask them what Ethernet is. I can promise you that. I'll put a stamp on it. Are you familiar with how to do ping trace route and know what the info that you receive means? That's very useful. So even today, even though this was 10 years ago, even today, that's still really useful. Like, I use pings and traces all the time. So ping and trace route. Ping, basically, you're pinging a site in order to get information, but there's a lot of reasons why people ping. So, like, for example, like, go back to that whole DNS explain thing. I would ping a site and see if it replies back with its IP address, because that lets me know if DNS is working, right? So if you do a ping is basically you sending a signal from one location and then it coming back. So if I was to ping www.google.com, which is actually the command that you would put into command prompt in order to get that information, or if it was Linux, you just still ping it for whatever directory that or path that you're in. You just type in ping, and then the response that I get back would be the IP address. So that means that DNS is working. Now, if you do a ping to www.google.com and nothing comes back, and then you do a ping to 8.8.8.8, which happens to be Google's DNS, and that comes back, then that lets you know you have a DNS issue, and that's how you would troubleshoot a problem. So a lot of times in the cable industry, in the broadband industry, in the networking industry, in the technical industry, people would just ping just to try to figure out stuff. And a lot of times pings may be blocked by firewall, but if they're not, then it's a good test to run. Now, you have to be careful with some environments. Like if you're working in like a very highly secure environment, they may not allow ping. So it's best to ask first before you start just randomly started pinging stuff, because that may trigger an alarm or something like that. So just be very careful. Just ask before you start just randomly pinging stuff. Just be like pinging random IP addresses to see who replies and stuff like that. The reason why I say this is because I don't want you to do a like get a brand new job and then do a scan on the environment, because that scan, depending on what kind of alerts they have, they may come back as something malicious. And on your first day, you just scan for every device in the environment, and now you have a lot of explaining to do. So that's the reason why I'm saying this. So just don't do pings unless somebody tells you to, or unless somebody gives you permission to, is what I'm really trying to say. Whew, this is hard. Okay. Difference between switch and router. Why would you use a switch instead of a hub? Jesus Christ. Nobody's asking you about hubs these days. Oh my goodness. I'm dating myself, the fact that I know this. So a hub back in the day, the reason why a hub was trash is because it had collision detection and collision avoidance. It was like CMDA and CMCA, something like that. But basically it would, whenever two packets are actually coming to a location, one of the packets would wait for the other one to go through. That would be collision avoidance, and then collision detection was something similar. So a hub is at layer 1, a switch is a layer 2, and a router is a layer 3. But a switch is far better, because a switch, it basically gives everything their own broadcast domain, which is their own individual location for sending traffic. And then a router is at layer 3, and a router is for routing packets, essentially. It can do way more than routing packets nowadays. Now it can do all kind of stuff. It can do intrusion, it can do malware, it can do lookups, it can do security intelligence, and all kind of craziness. But that's kind of the idea. A hub is layer 1, a switch is layer 2, and a router is layer 3. And I don't want to go too far into it because I'm not sure what kind of audience that I will end up getting in the future. So I'll just go with that, and we'll just go from there. Now, Are you familiar with the oh no, anybody would ask that. Are you familiar with products we offer at this business? Now, people do ask you that question, so be sure you know, if you were to go for a job interview, be sure you know the kind of questions people would ask, and just make sure that you understand the business itself. So just be very aware of that. Are you familiar with digital phone and voice over IP? Yeah, so you may get this one, but if you're getting this one, then you're pretty much working for the cable industry. So congratulations. But yeah, voice over IP is a very useful feature, because basically, like the MTAs, so basically the DOCSIS modems that you get from cable industries, they also come with the ability to have phone connected to them as well, and that will give you like home phone service. I don't know what their stake in the phone industry is these days. I know a lot of times they're now trying to do wireless phone, because nobody really has home phones anymore, except for like, you know, maybe people from a different generation or something like that. But a lot of people don't have home phones anymore. But we used to push it heavily, home phones and voice over IP and Vonage and stuff like that. So voice over IP, and just to explain what that is voice traffic over the IP protocol. Okay, which is layer 3. But what is voice traffic over layer 3 or IP? So essentially, is voice traffic traveled through the internet bandwidth. And so because of that, what that gives you is essentially a bunch of UDP packets that are very, very sensitive to latency, because if so, it'll be a breakup in you talking, right? So it'll be so that's essentially what you get. You get a bunch of UDP packets sent from one location to another. And a lot of people, and we still have this, but it's in different formats. Like whenever we're on like Messenger and stuff like that, that's essentially voice going over the internet. So we have that in different formats, but the way he's talking about, he's actually saying phone, digital phone, voice over IP. He's referring to the cable industry, and he's referring to MTAs. And an MTA is just a modem that has phone. MTA that has the ability that you can plug a phone in and get a signal. So that's what he's referring to, and that's kind of what it is. But it's the ability to have voice traffic over the internet protocol. Insert generic customer has no internet example. How do you handle this? You're going to get a question like this towards the beginning of your career. And it is what it is. I would just explain it just as simply as possible and let them ask you questions to go further, because if not, you're going to be talking for hours. Because I mean, I could like internet example of why their internet customer has no internet. So like there's a million different reasons. Like we can talk about 169 IP addresses, we can talk about the fact that it's not plugged in, we can talk that they have no batteries in their remote, so their TV's not on, so they don't even know if they have internet or not. It depends on the situation. In this kind of a situation here, because you're talking about the cable industry, that means you're talking about a residential customer, then more than likely, you know, it's going to be the most basic of situations. So it's going to be either, you know, the coax wasn't plugged in, or they have a splitter, stuff like that, things that you would normally want to check for. So cable or splitter, plugged in, power on the TV, batteries in the remote. I mean, just as simple as you can possibly have. Lights on the modem, if there's only one light and there's no online light, and well, there you go. You know, obviously you don't have signal, but at that point in time you should know that, because you can pull up the modem from the position that you would be working from in this particular situation. What router brands do you know of? How do routers work? Yeah, so these are very basic, but router brands, Netgear, Linksys, stuff like that. There's so many, I can't even think of all of them. But yeah, there's Netgear or something like that. And how do routers work? And I think we've actually already explained that one, so I'll just skip right over it. Experience with firewalls. I am not going to get into that because I don't want to lose my job. So I may just stop with that. But firewalls essentially is the way of protecting your environment from malicious attack. Okay, they can also serve as a router too. So they can also route packets from residential IP addresses to public IP addresses. But that's essentially what firewalls do. So they have the ability to protect your environment by not allowing certain traffic in, as well as route packets. That's kind of the best way to explain it there. What is POP and SMTP, and what ports do they use? Okay, so POP is oh my god, 51, and SMTP is like 23 or 22, something like that. Wow. Oh my god, it's been a while. But yeah, POP is 51, SMTP is 20, 23, 22, 21, something like that. It's been a while. And what ports do they use? Okay, yeah. So POP and SMTP, just explaining what they are. That's just mail protocols for receiving and sending traffic. So POP 51, SMTP. Okay, maybe it is 23. It's something like that. It's for sending and receiving mail. So whenever you're having like Outlook or something like that, you may have a position where you're just dealing with mail, in which case it will be the mail client, which is the Outlook client. But nowadays, even the Outlook client is just kind of everything's just online. So I don't know if you're going to get those questions too often these days, unless the company has their own mail server. And if they do, then you may have to work with that. But outside of that, I don't really see it happening. What part of HFC network do you know? That's a hybrid fiber network. It's like, I don't know if people still do this or not. I had to look it up myself because even I didn't even know it. And I was in the cable industry for 10 years. So I don't even know if that's still going on, but that's what it is. It's a hybrid fiber network, but I don't know why you would use it or what it is and all that kind of stuff. That's getting into the weeds there. So I apologize for that. I wanted to just be, I don't want to just like look these up and then just give you an answer because I looked them up. Like that's disingenuous. If I don't know it, I'm just gonna tell you I don't know it. That way you can at least understand where I'm coming from with it and know that I'm at least trying to be genuine with it. Because why would I look that up and be like, oh yeah, it's this, and this, and I've never experienced it before in my career. So it's just not ideal. Do you have experience with VPNs? Of course I have experience with VPNs, but to explain what a VPN is, so let's say, your work wants you to work from home. Okay, well, you don't want to send all your information to your job and look up information about your job over the public internet because people can see it. VPN is a way of encapsulating that several times into a tunnel that allows you to send that traffic securely. That's what VPN is. So that's kind of like the broader scale of VPN. Alrighty, that was a lot. That was whew. But that's the kind of way you would kind of deal with that if you got those kind of questions, and just kind of explaining it. Of course, now these are older questions, so I doubt that you're going to get these in the future. But if you were applying for a cable position, like for a company, like, I don't know, we have what's called Suddenlink here, or Time Warner, things of that nature, those would be the kind of questions that they would ask. So just be mindful that you can run into those situations. Whew, okay. All right, that took a lot out of me. Okay, cool. Let's get on to the next one. All righty. Hey guys. Hey, how's it going, Caspix? I am not 100% positive this happened when I disabled fast boot, but it's after that I noticed it. Okay, well, fast boot, for those of you at home, fast boot basically allows you to boot to Windows faster. And now I feel like I'm being condescending, so I'm just gonna stop talking and just go continue reading. I had to disable it to have Wake on LAN working. Okay, without that disabled, there was no way I got any life in my computer when sending magic package. But now the LEDs on the GPU flashes all the way, but when the computer is on and when it is off. Is this a problem, or do GPUs just misunderstand what's given to it? What? But now the LEDs on the GPU flashes all the way, but when the computer is on and when it's off. Is this a problem? I'm not exactly sure what his question is. Everything else is fine. It's a 3080, but as mentioned, they have never flashed before. Well, it's hard to say because I'm not exactly sure what you're trying to send to it. Now he's trying to get Wake on LAN to work, and he's trying to send a signal to make his computer wake up. I'm not sure with this one here. I would say in this kind of a situation, you may have to bypass and go with something like, well, okay, there's maybe a reason why he's doing specifically Wake on LAN. So if I say something like TeamViewer, that would be a little bit ahead of myself. It's hard to say exactly what he's looking for, but I've never experienced that. It really probably kind of depends on your sleep settings and how you currently have it set up. Now, the fact that it's blinking and you're not mentioning that the graphics card or anything else is having an issue, then it may just be something with the way you're setting up your Wake on LAN and the sleep settings of the actual devices themselves. Like if they're going to sleep, but it's not really going to sleep, like for example, the graphics card is staying on or something like that, then I can see that being a kind of an issue or something like that. Or the graphics card not turning all the way off or something like that. But yeah, I think you may be having an issue between sleep and hibernation. That's the only thing I can really think of. But that's an interesting one, you know. Hopefully that helps. But I apologize. I can't think of anything that can really answer that one. It's a little bit on the so yes, I'm sorry. That was my first response I've ever seen since I've been doing this. Hi, Leo. I'm sorry for peeking in your ear, bro. I need to fix this, but I'll get better. I promise. From Brazil, nice. Yeah, free technical support. Yes, it is. And I'm just kind of going over different issues that you can experience and try to help people get better at technical support without having the experience, because I know having experience is very, very difficult and people won't even hire you because of that. And I just want to like impart my knowledge so that you can at least learn under someone freely without having to, you know, have a job in order to get it, because jobs are hard to come by and most people won't hire you with no experience. So that's kind of the gist of it. So nice to meet you, bro. So let's go ahead and go with the next one here, because this one is kind of weird. Alrighty, so let's go with this one here. So LED flashes on the GPU after I disable. Is this with the same? That's the same question. I'm sorry, that he did too. Okay, whatever. Okay, cool. We'll just skip past that. All right. So let's go to this one. My Wi-Fi will not load specific web pages. Okay, that's an interesting one. This is something that just recently started occurring. Specific web pages are not loaded by my Wi-Fi, either on mobile or PC, so that means they try multiple devices. Have tested on Safari and Chrome. For example, my portal for my on Safari and Chrome. Okay, Safari and Chrome. Okay, the reason why I'm repeating this to myself is because depending on the browser, they like to take settings of other browsers, and Safari is one of them. So that's the reason why I was repeating that to myself. Okay, specific web pages are not loaded by my Wi-Fi either on mobile or PC. Have tested on Safari and Chrome. For example, my portal for my online classes never loads 90% of the time. Sometimes it does decide to load randomly, Craigslist.com. Endlessly loads forever. Most websites have zero issues accessing. I connected to my mobile hotspot to see if it was just an issue with my Wi-Fi, and yes, it is. Huh. That's interesting. My class portal and Craigslist RAM or video card. For this issue, no. But we'll talk about it. My class portal and Craigslist load without issue when using my mobile hotspot. Any reason why this would occur? Yes, I tried flushing my DNS via terminal, but that didn't do anything. Okay, so let's talk about this one, because she's saying, okay, I switched to my mobile hotspot, which is a totally different IP address, and everything worked. Here's the thing. She said specifically she switched to her hotspot. That she didn't say I switched to my mobile phone, which means that she switched to a different device entirely. She said she used her hotspot, which means that she was on the same computer and she hooked up to her hotspot, which means that she's using the exact same browsers she was using previously. So that automatically eliminates it from being a browser issue, just from that alone. Now, if she had said, okay, whenever I use my phone, everything's working perfectly fine. However, when I'm using my computer, that's when I experience the issue. Now you can say, okay, you have an issue with pop-up blockers on your browser. which was the first thing I was thinking about until she said that. Until she said hotspot. That is very, very important. That means she changed the public IP address to a different location and everything worked. If it was pop-up blockers, it still would block you because you're going to a location, or it's not necessarily blocking the site, it's blocking things on the site, like ads and stuff like that, which would cause you to not pull up the entirety of the page. So way back when, what had happened was pop-up blockers used to be the thing, and they still are. But essentially, what browsers and websites started to do, because they were actually losing revenue because of pop-up blockers, was that if you blocked certain things with your pop-up blockers, the page wouldn't load altogether. Or now they'll do wall gardens and say, hey, go ahead and subscribe. If you actually want to do this, you have to turn off pop blockers in order to see this screen. Like, you see this a lot nowadays where it'll show you the little splash page now. So they prevent you from using pop-up blockers on their page because they lose ad revenue. So that used to be a very, very prevalent situation. But in this case, she's changing her public IP address, so you can't say that it's a pop-up blocker in this particular situation. In this situation, she may be having issues with her internet security settings. So she may have like some type of internet security that may be interfering or something along those lines. That's what I would think of. I would first think of internet security, but working fine, but suddenly it crashes and loses. Oh, I'm sorry. You were actually referring to that right there. Okay, so let me go with this one here, and then I'll come back to your question. So with this one here, I connected to my mobile hotspot to see if it was just an issue with my Wi-Fi. Yes. So in your situation here, I would suggest, I don't know what kind of router you have, but some routers have the ability to block sites. So if you have a type of router that has the ability to block sites, then it could just be your router trying to protect you by blocking certain malicious things on different websites. But the fact that it was doing it on Craigslist is kind of interesting. So I would try to plug in directly or be very, very close to the wireless device that you're trying to get Wi-Fi from, and see if that actually fixes the issue, or hook up directly. If you hook up directly and the issue goes away and it's only with wireless, then you have an issue with your router, and otherwise I would say reboot. So then just reboot the router and see if that resolves your issue. So that's how I would handle that issue. I would hook up directly, and I would also try to reboot, get closer, things of that nature. Now, with your issue, my PC is working fine, but suddenly it crashes and loses video. I keep hearing things, and I can pause and play. Okay? Sometimes when starting the PC, I hear 2 short beeps and 1 long, and the PC does not turn on. Okay? Is it maybe RAM or video card? And I see the specs here. So he has an EVGA 1650. Hey, I love that card. And Ryzen 5 3600X, and a motherboard, a B450M, and mini ITX, or I'm sorry, yeah, mini ATX, or mini ITX, or micro ATX. I think he may be talking about micro ATX, DDR4, and then the gaming RGB 8 gigs of RAM. So let's just go back to the issue here. So I keep hearing things, and I can pause and play. Sometimes when starting the PC, I hear 2 short beeps and 1 long beep, and the PC does not turn on. Okay, well, what is your definition of turning on? If your definition of turning on is that you don't have a screen, that's totally different. That's not necessarily the definition of turning on. That just means you may have a graphics issue. But if turning on means you don't see anything, but the fact that you hear beeps makes me think that it's trying to turn on. So you may have like a short somewhere or something along those lines, or you may just have a power supply issue. Now, it just depends on what turning on means for you. So if turning on means like, hey, I see lights, or I see my fan on my CPU, my CPU fan turn on and spin up, but nothing happens, then you may be looking at a graphics issue. A lot of times with graphics cards, especially of the 16 series and the 10 series, whenever they start to go out, they may not even show you an input whenever you try to power on, but the computer powers on, so you'll hear beeps and fans and stuff like that and whirling noises. You just won't have a picture. The quickest way to know this is if you had like TeamViewer, you would go to another computer and TeamViewer into your desktop, and if you see your screen and everything is fine, then you have a graphics card issue, and you have to figure out, or you know, of course, it can also be a cable issue, but that's a very low probability. Most cases, it's a graphics issue. Let me know if that helps, bro. So yeah, I would just go with that. Let me know if you have any other questions. Just go ahead and continue there, and we will continue on. So yeah, I got a little bit more time here, so I think we have enough time for a couple more questions, as well as going to another topic. Okay, cool. So a gaming question. So let's go on with this one here. So far we've gone in this one show. We've gone networking, we've gone IT, we've gone cabling, we've gone PC, and we've gone Wi-Fi. So yeah, we're going all over the place today. And now we're back to video games. Alrighty, Epic and Rockstar games won't open. The Epic store is awful. I'm sorry, I'm saying this right now. it's not great. It may have gotten great in the future or currently, but it was not great last time I used to mess with it. I got a new hard drive, so I was reinstalling everything on my desktop: Steam, Ubisoft, Battle.net, Oculus, Rockstar, and Epic Games. My man. Rockstar and Epic were the last two. I have well more than enough space. It's a 6 terabyte drive. Everything opens and runs extremely well except for Rockstar and Epic Games. I've uninstalled and reinstalled the games launchers, put them on my SSD, put them back on my drive, everything on Epic. I press the game, it says running for 4 seconds, then goes back to the normal screen with it saying launch. I used to have, oh my god, boy do I have horror stories. For Rockstar, it says loading indefinitely. No issue like this on anything else. Someone suggested to use a different router or ISP. I don't have either. I've turned off antivirus. I've ran it as an admin. I've restarted my computer countless times. Didn't have issues like this on my old drive. And it's by the same company. Any suggestions? I don't think that's Drive though. And here's the thing. If you're having issues and it tries to load and it just dies. Now, if it was working prior to you buying the hard drive, now that's a little different. Like if it was working prior to you buying the hard drive and then you buy the hard drive, now it's not working, then that means that the files themselves may be corrupted. But I don't put any faith in the Epic store and that app working. Okay, I have no faith in it. So it could be that it's just that. But at the same time, it should at least try to give you a picture. Now, you saying that it could be the internet, the IP and stuff like that, I don't see that happening. Of course, it tries to reach out to try to make sure you have an account and successful, stuff like that. I don't know if it tries to reach out right then and there, because I wasn't, I don't do like Wireshark packets on it or anything like that. If it tries to reach out upon opening the game, like if Steam reaches out upon opening the game, I don't know if it actually does that or not. It's a possibility, but if that was the case, then you'd have this issue long before you got a new drive. So for you to say that, hey, I got a new hard drive, so I was reinstalling, but if everything was working prior to that, then I would start to wonder. So yeah, with this one here, I would say uninstall, reinstall Rockstar Epic Games, and then I would say if that's the case, he said he got a new one, so he doesn't say specifically that his old one was bad. I would say install it on your old one and see if that fixes the issue. So basically get what's called a USB to SATA. See if I'm guessing he bought an SSD. So USB to SATA, and plug that into your computer and install Rockstar on the drive and see if that actually gets it to go. Because there's not enough information for me to just make a defined statement on, so I'm just giving you options on how you would play this. You would basically hook up a USB to SATA, put Epic on the drive and see if that will load, Epic in the game on the drive, and see if that will load instead, and see how that goes. It may be that you got a new hard drive and your hard drive is too slow, but I've never had a situation, or I've never seen situations where hard drives being the issue. Like, it's slow, true, but it's not gonna make it so that it doesn't pull up anything, like, and just kind of goes back to normal. But I've had situations where that's happened with Steam, and when that happens, I would have to reboot my device, and then it would fix itself. But that's the only time I really run into those kind of situations. It's like randomly happening and then me rebooting, and that's what would actually fix that issue. So hope that helps, bro. That's kind of an interesting situation, but it's Epic Store. Epic is bad. Alrighty, and I think I got one more here. Okay, cool. So we're back on hard drives. Alrighty, so this one here, Is it safe to use a SATA to USB cable on an internal HDD or internal HDD? Oh my god, I put like 8 D's in that. I put heavy D in that to recover data. This is from Embarrassed Vanilla 99. Hey, okay, I'm sorry, my stuff came up. Hey guys, not sure if this is the right place, but I'm planning on recovering data from my old internal hard drive. By using a SATA to USB cable, like we were just talking about, and plugging it into my current PC. I only need the the hard drive for a little while, so I'm not buying an enclosure. True, I'm worried that using it bare in the open without an enclosure and plugging it in via my USB port can make it electrically conductive and dangerous. Is this something to worry about, or is it just a fear? Hopefully it's just a fear. It's just a fear. I don't see any problems with that. Now, you know, if you want to be super protective, then you can just go ahead and get some anti-static gloves and put it on a non-conducive surface, like for example the motherboard shrouds. When you get a new motherboard, that shroud a lot of people save. I save them all the time. You just sit it on that, and then you plug it into the USB SATA, and then you do it with non-conducive gloves, like the gloves cannot actually accumulate electrostatic pressure. They just can't accumulate any type of electricity. So basically, anti-static gloves on that little metal shroud or whatever that you get from motherboards, just put it on that and then hook it up, and there you go. So that's the quickest way to do it. But I mean, you can just do it with your hands. It's not that sensitive, so you're not gonna have a problem. So not too worried about that. And that is it for these questions here, and it just hit 9 o'clock. I think I answered everything. I hope I didn't miss anybody. Yeah, I'm liking these. I have to break this up into a million different videos, but hopefully this turns into a thing and people start liking it, and other people can get on and start asking questions, and I can start answering them, and from different subjects and topics and things of that nature, and kind of grow this thing, and that's what I hope to do. I hope everybody enjoyed the episode. If you guys have any questions, you can always leave it at any of the comments. My YouTube is youtube.com/TheOpenForum. You can leave questions there. You can leave questions on any other videos that I've done. I'll answer them when I can, and when I can get to them. I should be able to get to them pretty quickly. If you ask questions in the chat, I can pretty much see them and then ask, so that helps as well. But yeah, that's gonna be it for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you really like it, go and subscribe. I love you either way. Take care, all the best, and bye. Oh, I did it right on the first try. Bye, you guys.